A mother's embrace is supposed to be the safest place in the world. It's where children find comfort, protection, and love without condition. But what happens when that same embrace hides a darker truth? On an October night in 1994, a frantic mother ran to police in Union, South Carolina. She claimed a carjacker had stolen her vehicle, with her 2 young sons still strapped inside. Her tearful pleas for help made national headlines. America rallied around her. The story gripped the nation. But 9 days later, the truth came out. There was no carjacker, there was no stranger. There was only Susan Smith, a mother willing to sacrifice her own children for a chance at the life she thought she deserved. This is the chilling story of Susan Smith, one of the most evil mothers in history. October 25, 1994, Union, South Carolina. Susan Smith, a 23-year-old single mother, burst into the police station in hysterics. She told officers that while stopped at a red light, a black man had approached her car, forced her out, and driven away with her 2 children still inside. The boys were just 3 and 14 months old. She described her attacker in detail, sparking a massive manhunt. Police checkpoints were set up, helicopters scanned highways, and the media immediately ran with the story of the desperate young mother searching for her missing children. Susan appeared on television repeatedly, begging for the safe return of her sons. With tears streaming down her face, she pleaded, "I can't sleep, I can't eat, I can't do anything but think about them. Please bring them back." America believed her. The story dominated headlines. People sent in donations, volunteers combed the area, and news outlets broadcast Susan's face nationwide. But behind the scenes, investigators were already noticing something strange. From the very beginning, Susan's story didn't quite add up. The alleged carjacking took place at a red light in a small, quiet town, at an intersection where no one reported seeing anything unusual. Susan claimed the carjacker forced her out at gunpoint, but there were no witnesses, no footprints, and no physical evidence. Even her behavior raised questions. Officers noticed that while Susan cried on camera, her tears often stopped the moment the cameras turned off. Her emotional display seemed rehearsed. Then came the first major crack in her story: polygraph tests. Susan agreed to take them, and failed. Investigators began to dig deeper into her personal life, and what they uncovered would reveal a far more chilling motive than anyone expected. Susan Lee Vaughn was born in 1971. She grew up in South Carolina in a troubled household. Her father took his own life when she was a child, and her relationship with her mother was strained. As a teenager, Susan was known for seeking attention, especially from men. She married young, at 19, to David Smith. The relationship was rocky from the start, filled with jealousy, financial stress, and infidelity. They had 2 children together, Michael, born in 1991, and Alexander, born in 1993. But Susan was unhappy in her marriage. She frequently cheated, often with older or wealthier men. She longed for a life of romance, excitement, and financial security, something she felt her children were holding her back from. By 1994, she was separated from David and pursuing an affair with a local wealthy man named Tom Findley. And it was this affair that investigators soon realized was the key to the case. While Susan was publicly begging for her children's return, police obtained a letter she had received from Tom Findley. In the letter, Tom gently but firmly told Susan he could not be with her because he didn't want children. For Susan, this was devastating. She believed Tom represented the life she always wanted: wealth, status, freedom from responsibility. And in her twisted logic, her children were the obstacle standing in her way. Investigators began to piece it together. The story of a carjacker was a lie. The truth was far darker. 9 days after the children's disappearance, under intense questioning, Susan finally broke. She admitted there had been no carjacker. On the night of October 25th, she had driven her car to John D. Long Lake. Her sons, Michael and Alex, were strapped into their car seats in the back. She stepped out of the car, released the parking brake, and stood by as the vehicle slowly rolled down the ramp and into the dark water. She stood there, watching as her car and her 2 helpless children disappeared beneath the surface. When she told investigators this, even the most seasoned officers were horrified. One later described it as the most disturbing confession of his career. The next morning, divers located the car at the bottom of the lake. Inside were the bodies of Michael and Alex, still strapped into their car seats. The image of their tiny bodies, helpless in the back of the car, shocked the world. The entire country had spent days praying for their safe return, only to learn their mother had been the one responsible all along. The news coverage turned instantly. Where Susan had once been portrayed as a grieving mother, she was now branded as one of the most evil women in America. Susan was arrested and charged with 2 counts of murder. Her trial began in July 1995. The prosecution painted her as a selfish, cold, and manipulative woman who chose her own desires over the lives of her children. They read aloud Tom Findley's letter, demonstrating her motive. The defense argued that Susan was mentally unstable, suffering from depression and trauma. They brought up her father's suicide, claims of abuse, and her fragile state of mind. But the jury was unmoved. On July 22, 1995, Susan Smith was convicted of 2 counts of murder. She was sentenced to life in prison, with the possibility of parole after 30 years. That means Susan Smith could be eligible for release in 2025. In prison, Susan has continued to make headlines. Not for remorse, but for misconduct. She has been caught having inappropriate relationships with guards and has repeatedly sought attention through interviews and letters. In one letter, she insisted she wasn't a monster, claiming, "I am not the same person who did that. I am a good mother who made a terrible mistake." But for most of the world, Susan Smith will forever be remembered as the mother who rolled her children into a lake, all for the chance at a new life. Psychologists analyzing Susan Smith have described her as narcissistic, manipulative, and emotionally unstable. Her crime reflects a chilling aspect of certain personality disorders, the ability to detach from empathy, to prioritize personal gain above even the most sacred bonds. Susan didn't see her children as people who depended on her. She saw them as obstacles, and when she believed removing them would get her what she wanted, she acted. It's this cold calculation, wrapped in the disguise of a grieving mother, that makes Susan Smith stand out as one of the most evil mothers in history. The story of Susan Smith is one that still haunts investigators, prosecutors, and the public to this day. For 9 days, America prayed for 2 little boys, but their fate had been sealed from the very first night, by the very person who was supposed to protect them. A mother's love can be the purest force in the world, but in Susan Smith's case, it became the mask that hid something far more sinister. This was the story of Susan Smith, a mother who will forever be remembered as one of the most evil in history. If you want more chilling deep dives into the darkest true crime cases, subscribe to True Crime Obscura, because sometimes the most horrifying monsters are the ones who smile on camera.